This is Julie Pearson, Little Thunder with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at Oklahoma State University. Today is Sunday, March 10th, 2019, and I'm interviewing George Coser at his home outside Glenpool, Oklahoma. George, you've been involved with your ceremonies, with your culture and Creek language all your life. You're also well known as a powwow singer and drummer. You're currently retired from drug and alcohol counseling, but you got involved early on when Native approaches to substance abuse were just beginning to be implemented. We've known each other for a while, but I'm looking forward to learning some new things about your life and career this time around. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I think the hospital was called Mercy Hospital, which is no longer in Tulsa. and when I was 2 years old, we moved to OOHRP. My dad, he was a World War II veteran, and he took advantage of that GI Bill and went to school. He enrolled at, it's called OSU OOHRP now, but it was just called OOHRP Tech. And he took up, I think it was working in boots and saddles and all that type of thing, because he was no cowboy. Anyway, but that's where I was raised, in OOHRP.
Leather work, then.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about what your dad did. How about your mom?
My mom was, mom and dad, they met when there was a program called the CCC. I think it was stand for Civilian
Conservation Corps, I think.
Yeah, he was doing some of that work after he got out of service, and he met somebody there, and he said, "I know a lady here, so I want to introduce you to. This is my mom." So, they were tearing down some stuff around Morse, Oklahoma. That's where she was from. So they met, and that's how I got brought into this world.
How about brothers and sisters?
I got two brothers and two sisters, but also I have two half sisters. And two half sisters are older. Yeah, Dad had a daughter, and Mom had a daughter, and they're both deceased now.
What was it? What was your relationship with your grandparents on either side of the family?
I got to stay with my grandma during the summertime, and even during the wintertime. Her name was Abby Coser. She passed away in 1967, and she was around 100. We estimated that she was around 106 years old, and she didn't speak any English. All she spoke was Creek. So, and she lived out on a farm west of Eufaula, Oklahoma. Little bitty community called Rayford, and it's on Highway number 9. And so I really enjoyed staying there because back then she didn't have no running water, no electricity, all the things that we have we take for granted today. But it was a nice time. I really enjoyed it. I'd have to chop wood for her, or we lived that. Well, today you could call it primitive, but I really enjoyed it because it was a lot of fun. She had animals there and just all kind of things, and plus it was an education in our culture. Living with her.
Were your brothers and sisters there to play with, or how did you entertain yourself?
My sister was, and she would also go with me, my older sister, and we'd stay with Grandma. And just there was always something to do. We'd go down to the creek and go swimming, or just exploring. And I know one time there was an older man that's Grandma was. She was a doctor. In our language, we call him Helishaya, medicine maker. And people would come to her, and they would stay with her for about maybe a day, maybe a week, a month. But that's how they repaid her for her services. And there was an old man that used to come visit her. Well, he was a relative, and he used to show me around. And he said that one day he said he could talk English. He said, "You want to go visit the old graveyards of all your ancestors?" I said, "Yeah." So we took a trip across the south of the house, and kept on walking, and we got there. I saw the old graves of our ancestors that came over on Trail of Tears.
Mm.
And so that was pretty interesting, and learn how to get fish out of the creek. And he showed me, said one day I was walking around and I saw something bubbling. He said, "That's fish." I reached down and pulled those little fish out with my hand, just things like that were really interesting, because kids find that interesting to see stuff like that.
Right.
It's all kind of different animals, and just something you don't see in town.
Mm-hmm. What was it like when you were in Okmulgee during the year? What was Okmulgee like back in that day?
Well, it was. I had a lot of good friends, but still there was a little bit of racism, and it was real subtle. But I know there was across the street from where I grew up. There was a can't remember the exact name of it. It was like a self-help groups.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see what. Oh, it's kind of like Lions clubs and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
or Rotary or something.
Yeah, it was across the street from us, and my dad wanted to join it, but this one guy says they won't accept you, and you can always remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, that's just because of we were Indians. I mean, they just that's the way that's what I'm going to tell it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like I grew up. So I was born in 1948, but I got to see things like there was a store in Okmulgee we call it Cress's, but it's called Cress. I got to see the water fountains in the back for blacks and for whites.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was always told you drink with the whites. I got to see that. I mean, when they show it on TV, I said, I've seen that before.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we were treated good, and sometimes we weren't treated good.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember growing up in like grade school and junior high. Years later, a friend of mine says, "Well, you guys were mean." I said, "Well, we had to be because we would get called names." So we had to. We knocked a few heads around, but it was just because of, we didn't want to be called names. So.
Right.
And but I also had some good friends. I mean, just my good friends outweighed the ones that I didn't care for.
Mm-hmm.
I got to see the racism.
So, what were some of the subjects and or teachers that you enjoyed in school, and then some challenges that you had in school?
Well, some of the subjects that I liked was art, because it was my form of expression, art. I didn't care for history because it didn't include us. Back in the day, they had Oklahoma history, but they never told anything about us.
Mm.
They just kind of said, well, this and this happened, but actually, But I knew history from oral, from my folks, and it was better. I got a better education from the people orally than I did in school. Times have changed, but I like the change.
Yes.
Yeah, because I can get to speak on some of the things that I saw and I grew up with that didn't come out of the books.
And you were active in both sports and rodeo. Can you talk a little bit about?
Yeah, I just my folks, my dad and his older brothers were all cowboys. One, my Uncle John, he was a professional steer roper. And Dad and his brother, my Uncle Pete, they were rodeo riders and bronc and bull riders and calf ropers and so. As time went on, when all his kids were born, my dad was a trick roper. Dad, he trick roped, and when he was in the service, he got to travel to different places to perform. He took his ropes with him when he went to overseas, and he said he was glad that he did because he got to perform. And he performed before the Queen of England. He performed in the Colosseum in Rome, and there was another Colosseum in Arles, France. He performed, and also different army bases here in the United States when he came back. So, but he was a trick roper, and he let us kids, or he made us pick up those ropes and learn how to use them, and we did. Now, I haven't touched a rope in several years, but I can still twirl them right now. But it's just that we did that, and we had a family, so we'd go to perform at rodeos, and so. But I just enjoy that Western lifestyle, and I started riding in the rodeos back in the '60s, early '60s, when I was a little bitty fella. And I just enjoyed it because it kind of proved to him, how tough I was.
Right.
And I like I said, I really enjoyed it. I got to meet some good people, and I got to meet some rednecks too. So along with that, that's everything goes with it. But there's I was watching rodeo one time on TV, and they were talking about all the camaraderie, and it is, I got to around where I grew up in OOHRP, there was and I've been wanting to write a story about how I grew up. There was white cowboys, Indian cowboys, and black cowboys from the city of OOHRP.
They had an integrated rodeo.
Mm-hmm. And I got to meet, I knew all of them. So, it was just like a family.
Yes.
I know the white cowboys, a lot of them were ropers. And so, but when you're a roper, you have, sometimes they have more money because they have to travel, pull their horses and just travel. And so I'd travel with them, but I was a rough stock rider, and I just would just take my ropes with me, my bull ropes, or my riggings for my bareback. That's all I needed, and I'd catch a rider with them, and we're going here this weekend. You need a ride? Yeah.
Where were some of the places that you went?
Went just all over Oklahoma, and when I went to school at Haskell, I got to rodeo in the intercollegiate rodeos. And that was pretty tough because it's just it was pros, professional, and just but I enjoyed it, just really. And a lot of the black cowboys I got to meet in OOHRP, they were just good people,
Mm-hmm.
So and also just all those Indian guys around there, we just we were just welcomed by everybody.
Great. You didn't participate in any all-Indian rodeos outside of the state or anything?
No, well, when the association started in Oklahoma, it was kind of the end of my career in that, because you can only go, so long in that, because, you have a lot of breaks. I mean, especially bones, and I suffered that, and so.
Did you? What kind of injuries did you?
Let's see, my knees, and broke both shoulders, ribs, got hit in the face with a horn, got stepped on in my back. And one time I was riding a bareback horse, and it ran into the fence with me, and I can still feel it today.
Oh.
And that's been almost 50 years ago.
Mm.
But like I said, my dad and uncle, they were all cowboys, and I just wanted to just carry on that tradition. And I just enjoyed it.
How about athletics? Did you do much
well,
of that in high
I played
school?
high school. Well, I started playing football when I was in the first grade. I went to a Catholic school called St. Anthony, and they had football, so I went out for football. It was funny because there was just everybody else was bigger than me, and this one guy that he was my size, and we'd all hang together. They would make us against each other because we were the same size. And I played for OOHRP junior high and high school, and from the first grade to the 12th grade I played football. And I played 1 year at the Haskell. It was just becoming a junior college, and I know my high school football coach. He said, George, you're going to see some big people. And boy, he was right. And we played with different teams. That was in the fall of 1966. And we played other teams that, I mean, these guys are like 6'6", 6'5", 250, 260. And that was big. But today they're a lot bigger. But what I found out was that these Haskell, when we played up there, it was for the enjoyment, because back then they didn't recruit. And but a lot of these schools that we played against, maybe Kansas State or Kansas University, students that couldn't quite cut their curriculums, they were brought down to these junior colleges to maybe build up their grade or wherever, especially the grades.
Mm-hmm.
And we played against them, and a lot of them were all Americans. And boy, I remember our very first game, we played against this one junior college called Pratt Junior College. And a lot of them guys were going to OU and OSU. And boy, I mean, that first time when they gave that guy the ball, boy, I mean, it was unbelievable. All these big, big people, I said, now I know what my high school coach is talking about. But I enjoyed it,
Now, did you not go to Haskell then until what would have been your first year of college?
Yeah.
When did you leave OOHRP school system?
1966.
Okay.
Yeah, fall of 1966.
And what was that like going to Haskell?
Oh, I enjoyed it. I got to meet all kind of tribes, and it was being with Indians. I mean, just everybody. We had guys in there that could talk Creek, and I just really enjoyed it. I mean,
Complete change from public school in OOHRP.
Really? It was 100% change, and it was good. I got to meet people from just everywhere, from California, New York, Arizona, Montana, just Florida, everywhere. And just got to talk to them about the way they were brought up. And it was just kind of opened up my eyes, to what was going on.
Mm.
And so, but it was just, it was a good experience. I really enjoyed it. And some of my good friends today, if they're still alive, I'll call them. Because, what we share together. We're like a family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I had a friend, he has since passed away, but he was a product of government schools. I guess, I don't know what happened to his family, but he grew up in a grade school, then he junior high and high school, and then he went to Haskell. So all his years were in a boarding school. So that boarding school people became his family. And I got to see that. And like I said, I got to see, there were students from Alaska. And the first thing I thought about the students from Alaska, I thought they were all Eskimos. But I've come to find out they had a lot of tribes in Alaska, like the Haidas, the Tlinkits, all the different tribes. And I got to see Eskimos too. And they would tell me this. There's one young lady, she said she lives in a place called St. George's Island. She said it's about 90 miles from Russia. I said, golly, I mean, it was just, and people just, and sometimes they would ship stuff to the school. It'd be food from different places. But I really enjoyed it. I mean, I just had a good time, and just being around. I had a lot of crazy buddies, and that made it worthwhile. But I remember my first couple of days when I got there, it was kind of, I got homesick. Everybody does. But I didn't. I just kind of said, well, I'm gonna tough it out. I did, and I just really enjoyed it, and it was kind of a sad day when I had to leave, but I knew my time was up, so I came back.
You went home in the summer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you were up there 2 years.
Yeah.
Is that when you sort of first started getting involved with powwow, or?
Yeah, because what it was is, I grew up going to stomp dance and going to church, and I grew up Creek, and some of my friends were different tribes, Plains tribes. I remember I used to run around with some good friends. They'd be singing, and I'd bug them. I said, sing this song. Sing. I said, no, you sing it. I said, I don't know how to sing these songs, so we're going to teach you. So they did. They taught me, and I liked it. I mean, it was just, it was just being Indian. So, and after that, when I got out of high school, some of my friends I went to school with, I joined a group. It was called, they were out of Pawnee. It was the Moore family from around Pawnee. They were called the Brave Scout Singers. I sang with them for the first couple of years. Then I met a man named Tony Arkakita. He had a drum group called Redland. I more or less gravitated toward them because he was a real friendly man, and I enjoyed his demeanor. He's just really a nice person. So I sang, and I still sing with him today, and it's probably getting close to 50 years.
And always sort of southern.
No, it's northern style.
Northern style? Okay.
But also I learned that southern style.
You did learn the southern style too.
And it just, people are always amazed. What tribe are you? Some Creek. So, well, how did you learn these songs? Long story. Yeah.
And Tony he had a radio program.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it just, we had a good relationship, and just, he was just a good man. So, I enjoyed singing with him. We have, today we're still like a big family. But also, like I said, I sing that powwow song, but also I participate in my traditional ceremonies.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, because that was my first. I don't know the word now. Well, that's how I grew up. Yeah.
That's how you grew up, right? So your wife, Judy, is a well-known bead worker and former champion jingle dress dancer. How did you two meet?
Well, we were talking about that the other day, and I really can't really. She said she saw me one time at used to be a powwow north of Shawnee called Ed Max, which is no longer in existence. But she said she saw me there, and then she had a friend that we were at a dance one time in Tulsa, and we all got together, and finally I went back to work that week. The following week, her friend, I was talking to her friend. I said, "Where's your buddy?" And I said, "She's somewhere." And I said, "Do you have her phone number?" So got her phone number and called her, and it's history.
Well, what happened after you left Haskell?
Well, I got a draft notice to go to the service, and
Was this during Vietnam?
yeah, and it was in 1969. Anyway, I just but my injuries they let me go. So, but I had both my knees were all banged up, and so. They just turned me loose. So, but a lot of the guys that I knew, they went. So, but just and they said you're lucky.
Mm.
And I guess I look at it, I hate to sometimes talk about it because a lot of them didn't make it home, that I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a good buddy. He was white. He was a cowboy. And he and I used to meet at rodeos, and he was just a good person. And he was killed in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lost a lot of people there.
Yeah.
So, so you don't get drafted. Are you thinking about?
I went to work.
Okay.
I went to work for a place called Bendix Corporation in Kansas City. And it was, we made parts for bombs. And so, and also for the space, on the space explorations,
Mm-hmm.
we, I was a machinist at first, but then they had a reduction, and they asked us, they said, you can either stay here or you can go out and find you a job in this field. I thought, well, I'll just stay here. So I became what they call a mechanical electrical inspector. And then we'd inspect bombs and things like that, and worked with different types of things. Had a security clearance.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoyed that, but then, I had a buddy. He was a lot older than me. We used to run around together. We used to laugh and tease each other. Yeah, one day he asked me, he said, are you going to do this for the rest of your life, George? At that time, I said, I never thought about it, but then I kept thinking, I said, no, I don't think so. Then I was there about a year or 2 years. Came back to Oklahoma, and my sister was going to school at Bacone and said, yeah, you want to try Bacone? I said, nah, I didn't have a thought about it. Try it. So I did, and got to see some people that I went to school with before. That was just like a reunion, and I enjoyed it. Went to school there and got an AA degree. And while I was there,
You got an associate's degree in what field?
well, I
Just
as an associate
general
degree,
eds.
yeah,
Okay.
in general education. Anyway, while I was there, I was looking on a bulletin board one time in one of those offices, and said that there was an opening for teacher corps. And it said if you get accepted, you had to have 60 credit hours. So I said, well, I think I'll just put my name in just for the heck of it. So put my name in during summer school. Somebody said, hey, George, you got a call from Idaho. I said, who you know in Idaho? Couldn't think of who I knew. It was this professor. He said, would you like to come to Idaho State University and also work at the Fort Hall Indian Reservation? I said, yeah, I guess so. So let's try it. So, but I've always been the one for adventure, to do stuff, that I wasn't accustomed to. My dad used to always say, he had a philosophy. He said, when something comes to you like that, he says, try it. And he said, don't be the type of person that says, well, I could have did this. I could have did that. He said, no one wants to hear that. So, and I tried it, and I enjoyed it. And got to live on a reservation, go to school, and met a lot of different people. So got some good friends from like East LA and Chicago, and they were all crazy too. So I enjoyed that, having a good time.
What kinds of teaching were you doing or mentoring?
Well, I got to teach the 4th grade, but we had a what we called a cooperating teacher, and so they watched us, how we. Then finally, I think I got homesick, just because being out there in Idaho, never experienced any really tough winters like sometimes it was 20 below zero during wintertime, and also just when my thought was when I first went out there was, oh, I'm going to save some lives. And when I got out there 6 months later, I could care less because it's a different lifestyle. And I got to see racism. I mean, really racism.
Mm-hmm.
And I moved to a little town called Blackfoot, Idaho, right north of the reservation, just about 5 miles. And I still had my southern accent when I went out there. I called this number to rent a room, apartment. Then when I got there, I knocked on that door. The lady come to the door. I said, so I'm the one that called about the apartment. We just rented it. I said, and this is my exact words, you're a damn liar. And boy, I was mad. And finally I said, I better leave here before they call the cops on me. But I went, took off out of there. One day I was reading my paper again. I saw these people had a room for rent. It was just a room in a 2-story house. I went over there and this lady came to the door. I said, I come to check on this room. She said, oh, okay. So they were really friendly people, but this lady that eventually became my landlord, she was from New York City. So she grew up with different ethnic groups.
Right.
So it didn't bother her, And her husband, he was from that town. So I really enjoyed it, being their tenant. So they helped me out and and we got a stipend. And I remember one time, first time I went to cash my check at this bank. And that guy looked at it and says, you work at the school? I said, yeah. I guess he thought it was a maintenance worker or something. So what do you do out there? So I'm a teacher. He looked at me. Really? You're a teacher? I said, yeah. He didn't believe me. I said, well, you call my principal. He'll vouch for me. He did. But it was just like, I mean, back then, they weren't subtle. I mean,
right.
They were just real rednecks. But anyway, it was a learning experience, for everything that I've done.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I just kind of got tired of being out there. Came back to Oklahoma and enrolled at NSU. And I really enjoyed NSU. It was just, and still some more buddies that I went to school with or showed up and just made it much better.
Now, were you kind of interested in education at that point?
No, really, I was just, I didn't know what it was, but they had a program called Native American Studies that had opened up. And I thought, hey, I want to do that. But everybody started saying, well, what are you going to do with that degree? But, I got the last laugh. But I had to take 2 minors. Well, I took 2 minors, psychology and sociology. And that came in handy too. All 3 curriculums come in handy.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, while I was still drinking in those days. And I got a job, my first real indoor job, I went to work for Cherokee Nation, worked at Talking Lee's Job Corps. And I was a recruiter. And then something hit me one day. I said, I like to just work with, I like to do some counseling. Then I went to work at L.E. Rader Juvenile Center in Sand Springs. It was a state juvenile institution. I still used to drink a little bit. And this was in 1979 and 80. I thought to myself, how can I tell people what to do when I'm not doing, I'm not practicing what I preach? So I quit drinking and just
Was it hard?
Mm, not really, but you know, the only part that I missed was being around people, because you know that's why a lot of people drink, is to be around other people. You know, and, well, pretending to have a good time, or just acting like they have a good time. But anyway, just from then it was like, if I want to be good in my profession, I have to make a change. But you know, when I was at Fort Hall, we had a principal. He was an older man, and kind of rough talking guy, but he made a lot of sense. His name was Mr. Broadhead. He told us when we first got there, he said, I know you young people like to party. He said, get away from this area. They go next town or go, you know, wherever, but get away from here. He said, but also, so I want to tell you something. He said, your career, he said, you might danger your career. In other words, he said, you might not be able to get into that field anymore because of, you know, what can result from your partying. And I used that several times after I became a counselor, working with people. I would say, you know, hey, you might damage your career. And they would think about it twice. And some did damage their career, but it was up to them to change that lifestyle.
So you worked at Raider and had some native kids, but also non-native kids, just a
Well, there
whole
was more blacks and whites,
variety.
but they come in spurts.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, then I worked there for about 4 years, and then I went to work for, used to be called Native American Coalition of Tulsa. I became an outreach worker there. So, you know, I did a few things, you know, just kind of added to my ability, you know, just different segments, you might say, of a different type of um, vocation or just education, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And but then I just I went to work at for Indian Healthcare Resource Center. And then
Now, are you working as a drug and alcohol counselor yet, or you're still kind of doing youth counseling?
I was still doing that youth counseling. Then finally I went to, then you remember Amy Deere?
Mm-hmm.
Amy helped me get my certification. Because, you know, I thought, well, I think I'll get a certification, but I didn't realize what I had to go through. She helped me. And I got it, and I went to work at Jack Brown treatment program in Tahlequah, Cherokee Nation. I really enjoyed it there because I just, that was my really education working in that field. There's some technicalities that you have to learn. So I learned that, and just all the different places I went to work. I learned from different people too, you know, how to write treatment plans and how to progressive notes and things like that, you know, that they don't teach you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find out on your own. So.
And so talk a little bit about how using the native cultural approach was kind of different at that time and some of the things that were being experimented with.
Well, you know, it was, what I believe in is that I was told by an old Sioux medicine man one time I met in Denver, Colorado. He told me, he said, you know, alcohol, said it's a spirit. And he told me about other different things, spirit-wise. I understand what he was talking about. He even talked about nuclear energy, how it's a spirit. He said because it's made, it comes out of its natural state, and that spirit said you can't put it back. It's like alcohol. It's a distilled spirit, and you can't put it back after you bring it out of its natural state. That I understood, and so that was my key when I started working with Native people. They understood the spirit wise, and as opposed to the non-natives, because they weren't raised that way. So what I would tell them, I said, you know, I wrote a little story one time about in our tribes, different tribes, we have tricksters. Some Plains tribes have the coyote, and us Creeks we have a rabbit. He's a trickster. They call him Pasicola or Jovilaksa, rabbit liar. Anyway, he'll trick you into doing things. I said, that's the same way with alcohol and drugs. They'll trick you into doing things. Anyway, I use that sometimes when I was talking to people. I said that alcohol and drugs are tricksters because they trick you into thinking you're handsome, tricking you into thinking you're knowledgeable, all that. Because I remember I used to sit in the bar with the guys, and my intellectual days. But what it was is just we were just drunk, you know. And I look at but that spirit, this old man I was talking about. He said all these things come from spirit, and said and when you take it out of its natural state, you can't put it back because you put it like nuclear energy. When you take it out of its natural state, try to put it back, it poisons the earth. Mm. So I said that. But she said, in spirits like that, you can't do away with them, but you can control them. Mm-hmm. So that's what I used to use in my counseling. But Native people understand that because and so our beliefs are a lot different from non-Native people. But when I had to work with non-Native people, I would check to see what spiritual level they were on, because that's where it really starts when you work with that, because you have a better advantage. Mm-hmm. As somebody that just didn't believe anything at all. It's just like just talking to them, and then they'll agree with you. But sometimes it's just when they do that, you're really not counseling with them.
Mm-hmm. What was your most interesting counseling job or most rewarding counseling job? You worked other places after Jack Brown.
They were all rewarding. I remember one time Judy and I had moved to North Tulsa, and I was in this store. Somebody was hollering at me. And turned around and looked, it was some woman. She said, "Come here." So I went over there and she said, "I want to thank you for what you did." What'd I do? And she had her son was with her, big tall guy. He was a white guy. And she said, "Well, you got him into your program." But I thought, oh yeah, it was when I worked for a community house, once a month counselors had to go talk to the people at the detox center. Well, I mean, if you work with detox people, oh golly.
This was downtown, right?
No, it used to be over on 25th Street.
Okay,
right
but with the city.
Yeah.
City detox
so
center.
we got to go, and I was talking to them about our program. And they had their head down, they were shaking, some were getting sick, Anyway, I didn't think I was getting through to anybody, but he said, "Can I come to your program?" He said, "I'm white." I said, "Come?" I said, "We're a federal program." And when I told one of our counselors, James, I said, "James, we'll have a guy come." And he showed up. So he got help.
And he got help.
Yeah. That's what his mother was talking about. So
it's interesting because it seems like, to me, you're a natural teacher, but you've always had this thread of wanting to help people. Have you ever thought about maybe where that came from, or what?
Well, just people help me. Yeah, you just want to repay, people what was given to you. Yeah. I had a high school football coach. He said, We used to all party around us kids, guys. He said that. Kind of watch it, George. That might want to get you in trouble one of these days.
Mm.
And when I had a program with the coalition, Native American Coalition, I got to go down to McAllister Penitentiary and work with the Native prisoners. And I talked to them. I'd ask them, "What got you here?" So, well, I was drinking one night, it just went out of my head. And the next day I was in jail. And I'd ask people, what you in here for? What happened? Somebody said, "You killed somebody." So they were in the rest of their lives. So that proved to me how powerful that substance was. So, but it's just that you make a choice. You make a choice whether to use it or not use it. So, and I remember being on that side where when you're out partying and making fun of everybody, with this and that. But finally, you have to get on the other side, and you try to help. Like I said, there was a lot of natives doing time in McAllister. That, they missed out on the best part of their life. Maybe being married, maybe having kids, grandkids, just the good things of life. As a matter of fact, there was a guy I went to school with at Haskell. He was in there for life. And I can bring his name up on a DOC. And he's just an old man now. But when we met, he was a very handsome young man, just full of life and had his life ahead of him. Him and his brother killed a guy. They were from Lawton. And they killed a soldier, cut him up and threw his body off in the creek. And his brother got drunk one night and spilled the beans on him. Now he's in McAllister. So it's just, things like that I got to see, experience. Even in my own life, I went through some hard times, but it's because I put myself there. But sometimes it takes you to finally realize what you're doing to yourself, not only emotionally or spiritually or physically too. So I just didn't I had to finally figure out stuff like that, to finally just know, what it does to you, and also how to change your attitude. And I think that's what keeps me going today. Is I go to dialysis 3 times a week, and I run across people that just woes me, but I don't believe in that. I believe live life to its fullest. That's all I can do. Have a good time, and the kids and grandkids and nieces and nephews. I just try to be there for them, and just try to help them and instill good things in their lives so that they won't have to go through all the craziness. And I really feel good for one of my nephews. He had to learn some things the hard ways, but now he's a Phi Beta Kappa, getting ready to go change his life. He's going to go back to, he's been going to school, but he's going to keep going further in his education, so. And my brother's kids, they all got their education, but what I believe in is, just, I've worked with some of the disadvantaged youth, but as long as they're out there taking care of their families, or going to work, not getting involved with the law, just taking care of business, that to me, that's a success.
Right.
You don't have to be, a clinical psychologist or a brain surgeon, it's good. But still, it's just, if you're out there just living a good life,
right.
That's the best you can do. I mean, to me, that's the best.
You also teach language. You're a Creek language teacher. Can you talk a little bit about some of your...
Yeah, we have a program over here at Glenpool, and our teacher, he's he's more academic, but but I come in because of my knowledge of the way I was brought up. My mom and dad, they spoke the Creek language fluently. And it was, spoke around the house all the time. Grandma didn't speak English. My uncle, he spoke Creek. Well, all my family, my uncles and aunts, that's all they spoke. So you hear it all the time. So man, I know sometimes I have to help this young man because he might pronounce the word in a different the way he saw it. But I heard it a different way. So I'll add to it, and he's thankful for it. But I just enjoy it because if it goes, it'll never come back. And I hate to see our ceremonies done in English because it loses its, I say, the flavor. And also we have medicine songs that are in our language. If those go, then we become like the dominant society. We won't be unique anymore because of what we know, all our tribes. And I see language disappearing among some tribes. And it's kind of, once it's gone, it's gone. Because I was always told you have to have two speakers to keep it going. You lose one, then that one that knows can't speak to anybody. So that's where it goes. So even just a little bit, I still speak to my great niece. She's 9 years old, and I talk to her in our language. So she'll hear it, and not forget it. And my brothers, and we always try to help our kids, and so that they'll never forget it. Because once it goes, like I said, it's gone. And never, you can put it in the books, in dictionaries and things like that, but if you don't know how it's pronounced, if you don't know how it's pronounced, one of these days it might be spoken in a different manner.
Right.
And it would be like I said, it would change. So from the original pronunciation, and that's already happening. I've seen that.
You also kind of supervise stomp dance practices at Glenpool.
Well, we were until just everybody is working nowadays and just can't get loose. But I told them, I said, if y'all want to get together, we'll get together. And
when you were doing that,
it was fun
at Glenpool. What was that like?
Oh, it was a lot of fun because we had. I remember there's one young man. He's probably about 30 right now, a little over 30. When he first came, he was sitting there, and I said, "You want to lead?" I don't know how to lead. So I said, "No, just try it just once." I said, "I can only go about a little bit." So I said, "Well, get out there." He got out there, and he went around, and I said, "When you come back," I said, "we'll do it again." Today, he's one of the best. Yeah.
Oh,
and
that's neat.
We had a young lady show up one day. And she said, "I got Creek blood in me. I don't look it." I said, "Well, you got the blood in you." She had blue hair. And I kind of looked at her. She said, "Can I dance?" I said, "Yeah, get out there and dance." So she was dancing. And she would be out there mimicking the shell shakers. And one day the girls that were there, they gave her a pair of cans. And today she can shake shells.
She can shake shells. That's a neat story. George, you've been a speaker at a lot of, cultural conferences, prevention conferences. What are some things that you feel are important to share when you speak?
Well, I feel like especially substance abuse fields. That's, to me, that has always been the problems among Native people. Nowadays it's the drugs, but alcohol has always been around. And to non-Native people, I would tell them, they would talk about, what percentage-wise, we are, all that type of thing. And I said, well, if you look at it, I said, a lot of us Native counselors, when we get together, there's an old subject. What came first, egg or the chicken? And what that meant was, what came first, alcohol, drugs, or depression? I said, more than likely, he said it was depression. And it turned to alcoholism because, I said, if you study the history of Native people, I said, you'll find out that the United States government, when they were against us, they put us in a situation where nothing was ever right. I know there was a book that I like for all people to read, and it's called "And Still the Waters Run," written by a lady named Angie DeBow. And this happened here in Oklahoma. Talked about when the oil was discovered among the Creek people, and how greed came in, and everything was made for the greedy people. And my dad, he was an interpreter for the courts back in the 1920s for McIntosh County, for the ones that couldn't speak English. And he told me something that I thought he was just saying that, he said every 25 years, so the state of Oklahoma looks at what's profiting for the Native people. See, if it is, that what they'll do is they'll look at the law, and if it's ready to change, so they'll change it in their favor. And it's called the statutes of limitation. And Angie DeBow wrote the same thing, quote, in her book. I said, that old man knew what he was talking about. So, and education-wise, when our kids got in trouble, there was no recourse. No one to back them up, because they'd finally say, what's the use? Then all these things that are against you, they'll turn into depression. The first thing, when you get depressed, you want relief. And so, and alcohol is probably the first thing, and I've been when I was on the reservation up there, when I first got there, was 9 suicides. And it's because, there's no employment there, racism around outside, even just a tough life. But today I feel like education, not only just in the academics, but also education in life, and about how things are and how we can defeat that. But it's up to us to defeat that. There's a lot of people come in to help us, I remember the government used to have projects where they'd go in to help Native people doing this and doing that. But now we have to do it ourselves. And I really enjoy, living here in Oklahoma. Because, when you get outside of Oklahoma, different places, they'll kind of classify you as not being Native. But what it is we have adapted to our surroundings, and sometimes that's what you got to do. You got to adapt. Things can't always be the same, and our children, grandchildren, making them, know who we are, our traditions and culture, because we're here. We're not going to go anywhere. Our people have been for ages, and so just to make us feel better about who we are. And I told a person one time, I said, our young people are starting to learn the law. I said, things are going to be changing. They are
Mm-hmm.
changing for the better.
Right.
And also, there's one thing I used to like to work with, and it was jealousy. And I used to tell young people, I said, when people do things, especially your peers, when they do some good things, I said, pat them on the back, tell them good job. Don't say, you think you're better than us. I don't know how many times I've heard that. But one time, different organizations will say, well, these Indians are cultural. They have culture in life. But culture to me means, they're respecting who they are. A lot of them were just because they were using alcohol and drugs and in a situation where, and that's what the white man thought what culture was, I said, no, that's not culture.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but our way of life, it's just, it's a good life, but we have to maintain it, and the alcohol and drugs are really were, like I said, they were a trickster.
Mm-hmm.
They tricked our people into thinking, we're just for a short time we feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to say, well, why not feel good all the time? Without these substances, so you can do it. So, but also just talking good to. My dad said, be the best person you can, because it'll your spirit will show other people, other nationalities, what a good person you are. And that's what I like. Dad used to always say, be proud of your name, because I said there's people out there like so and so, that name. Said, oh yeah, they're drunks. So and so. They're come from a good family. I said your name goes a long ways. And one time I was in OOHRP and doing some things where I was a speaker that day for some type of program at the council house. And they gave me a check, and it was like, I couldn't get back in time to cash it here at Glenpool. It was almost noon. And there was a banker sitting there. And I knew who he was. Mom and Daddy's the banker. I said, is there any chance that you can cash my check for me then? Oh yeah. I said, you're George and Stella's boy. I said, yeah. He wrote his name down there. I wouldn't cashed it. So, but that showed me, how good they treated people. And when my dad passed away, when he died, I looked back there, who was at the funeral. There was white people, Indian people, black people. And if there was some Asian people, they probably would have been there. So that attests to what a good person he was, and my mom. And they lived in town of Muskogee for a long time and just treated everybody good. So to me, I grew up in a good family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've been associated with Tulsa Powwow for a lot of years, and you were recently honored there. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it was a good honor because, like I said, they honored myself and my brothers because, we've been associated for a long time singing. But it was really good, I enjoyed it, and people come up and shook our hands after it was all over with. And it just made me feel good that, not only, my singing, but also, just the community being involved in my counseling and helping people. People would call me sometimes, can you come and sing for us?
Mm.
Yeah, I'll help you out. So I just type of person, didn't look for no reward, just because I just wanted to help. And to be rewarded like that was an honor.
And you were sort of the one that got into it first and then got your brothers involved.
Yeah, they saw what I was doing, so they got involved. And today, my younger brothers, we can go somewhere and people still know us, So yeah, and that's a good feeling. I know me. I got a nephew. He went to Denver one time, and he was up there. He's in education. He went for a meeting up there. And they were having a powwow. And he met an older man. He told him his name. Oh yeah, George Wayne. Come sing with us. So he become buddies with that older guy. So but that's just I met people that just that I enjoyed being around because they were nice people. Just like my dad said, just be good to people, be good to one another. And that's what he used to tell us about our families. You kids be good to each other because you might depend on each other one of these days.
Mm.
But it's also when we get together, our families, be a bunch of little kids in there, and I said, "Oh, I wish mom and dad were here." Then I found out they were here.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
See all the great grandkids and all the nieces and nephews. Just my folks would just really enjoy that.
Well, is there anything we haven't talked about that you'd like to add, George?
Well, I just enjoy being here in this house, and things I work for. They're here. And I just try to live life and don't let anything just overwhelm me. I've already been through open heart surgery, had a stroke, and just some physical disabilities, but still I try to have a good outlook on life. Try to laugh and enjoy myself. So and one of these days, if anything ever happens to me, I'll just remember what my dad said. When the good Lord calls you, he'll call you and said, you can't say, hey, wait a minute. He said, you can't say it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. So the good Lord calls you, it's time to go. Just lead a good life. Have a good time. I believe in that. I don't feel down. Well, once you get, and that's what I used to tell my clients, especially in the substance abuse field. When you start feeling down, then it's got you. That spirit's got you. Then you're gonna keep going down some more. And one time I was in a bank there in Stroud, and this lady come up, and she said, "Hey, George, how you doing?" And I looked, and I said, "I remember her. She was my first client." She said, "I slipped." I said, "You know what you can do about it?" She said, get right back up. Keep going." So she shook my hand. So that's enough thanks for me. So that's, like I said, I enjoy helping people. And it's a good feeling.
Well, thank you for your time today, George.